Hey music junkies, Professor of Rock always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. If you're passionate, truly passionate about music, you're going to want to subscribe below so you don't miss an episode because we're now a daily channel. Also, drop us a line on Patreon because that always helps us out a lot. Now, it was a tireless work ethic, relentless ambition, and a take-no-prisoners tenacity that propelled Jon Bon Jovi and his band from sweeping floors in Jersey to planetary superstardom as one of the highest-grossing tour bands of all time. It's an incredible tale of faith and perseverance that we could all take something from. The Rise of Jon Bon Jovi is a tale extolling the virtues of working your butt off. If you want it, you need to do whatever it takes to get it. That is the epitome of Jon Bon Jovi. Jon grew up in blue-collar Sayreville in New Jersey, and he started playing music in '75 at the age of 13. He met eventual Bon Jovi keyboardist David Bryan when the two were 16, and they formed a band called the Atlantic City Expressway. That was followed by Jon Bon Jovi and the Wild Ones, opening for bands on the local club scene. Jon's next band was The Rest, an act that opened for Southside Johnny and the Asbury Jukes. And with that experience came some invaluable wisdom from Johnny that JBJ used to form the path to stardom. The most important advice from Southside Johnny was to bring it every night, no matter if it's 200 people or 20. A teenage Bon Jovi took that to heart and injected that mantra into his mission for world domination. To make a little money and network with the music business, Jon got a job at his cousin Tony Bon Jovi's recording studio called the Power Station. His duties entailed gopher work such as running errands and sweeping the floors. Using his cousin's connections and what little money that he could muster, Jon hired some studio musicians to record a song demo. His plan was to get the song to radio stations and try to get them to play the demo. Jon sent the cassette demo of the song to every radio station and record label that he could think of. He got no response. He then had the idea to take the demo to a newer rock station out of Long Island, New York, with the call letters WAPP-FM. The station was so new they didn't have much in the way of personnel. They didn't even have a receptionist. Jon walked right into the station and knocked on the door of the broadcast booth. He handed the cassette to WAPP air personality Chip Hobart and promotion director John Lastman. Jon gave the cassette to Hobart and said, "Hey man, I've got the right chords and a cool melody. What do you say? Do me a favor and in 3 minutes and 30 seconds, you're going to hear a rock star." Hobart was blown away by what he called this punk kid's guts. As the expression goes, fortune favors the brave. DJ Chip played the song on the air and Lastman put the song on the station's compilation album of local bands called Homegrown. As Lastman recalls, Bon Jovi was so impressive. He was persistent and supremely confident with laser focus. As a thank you to the radio station for including his song on their album compilation, Jon sent a bouquet of flowers to the VP of the company, likely paid for with money that he didn't even have. Recalled Lastman, after that gesture of appreciation, he remembered thinking, wow, that guy's good, he's going to make it. The song on the demo that APP played was Runaway, the track that became the first single by Bon Jovi and turned into a surprise regional hit, climbing to number 39 on the national US rock chart in '84. Jon Bon Jovi continued to work around the clock and getting the radio industry's attention. He introduced himself to the DJs at every station in every region. He did every interview that he could, including on-air interviews in the middle of the night. It didn't matter. Again, whatever it took. His attitude was, just give me a shot and I will prove it to you. Bon Jovi was signed to Polygram Mercury Records by famed A&R executive Derek Shulman, who was extremely impressed with how driven the band was to succeed, and he loved their story. After a few personnel changes, the band Bon Jovi was formed with a nucleus of excellent players. Jon Bon Jovi, the frontman and lead vocalist, of course. David Bryan, the keyboardist, who eventually co-wrote quite a few of the band's songs and became an accomplished composer in musical theater, including co-writing the musical Memphis and The Toxic Avenger. Tico Torres, of course, veteran drummer and background vocalist, most notably the backup vocal on the hit Born to Be My Baby. Just great. Richie Sambora. He replaced the Snake, Dave Sabo, as lead guitarist, of course, would later become the co-founder of Skid Row. Richie Sambora was extremely valuable to Bon Jovi's mega success as he was co-writer on many of the band's biggest hits, including Livin On A Prayer, You Give Love a Bad Name, Want It Dead or Alive, and Bad Medicine. Richie left the band in 2013 to spend more time with his family and was replaced by Bon Jovi's current lead guitarist, Phil X. Alec John Such was the original bass player. Hugh McDonald is the current bassist. He was a coveted session player who started playing with the band in '94. Becoming an official member in 2016. Bon Jovi's self-titled debut album in '84 went gold, and their second album in '85, 7800 Degrees Fahrenheit, took them to the platinum level, selling over 1 million copies. Now, expectations were growing, and the stage was set for their third album to be something very special, and it was in fact extraordinary. The release of Bon Jovi's third studio album, Slippery When Wet, in 1986, was a significant milestone in the rock era. It was the launch of one of the most culturally impactful albums in the history of recorded music. Recognizing the band's enormous potential for breakout success, the Bon Jovi team pulled out all the stops to make a watershed record. The trick was how to achieve mass success without compromising the band's image. It was critically important to carefully calculate every move. The band retained veteran artist manager Doc McGee and hired the song doctor, Desmond Child, to collaborate on writing and crafting hit songs. Childs was not well known at the time, but his work with Kiss on crafting their '79 hit, I Was Made for Loving You, led to Kiss co-leader Paul Stanley recommending that Bon Jovi hire him. Jon and Richie worked with Desmond in the basement of Richie's mom's place and came up with a bunch of songs, including 2 that would hit #1 on the rock and pop charts, You Give Love a Bad Name and Livin On A Prayer. After all, at the end of the day, to make an iconic album, you have to have amazing songs. For the recording of Slippery When Wet, Bruce Fairbairn was chosen as the producer and Bob Rock as the mixer. Now, both Fairbairn and Rock were very well-respected names in the music business, having worked with Loverboy on several records, including their classic, Get Lucky. Slippery When Wet was an instant success. It eventually sold over 28 million copies around the world. Everybody felt the effects of this epic album. It represented the height of pop culture in '86 and '87, and the irrepressible Jon Bon Jovi realized the fruits of his labor, becoming a rock icon. Now, lately, everybody on social media has been sharing pictures of the albums that influenced their taste in music. For '80s kids, this one is a no-brainer. Everybody I knew had this album when I was growing up. I lived in a subdivision with a lot of neighbor kids, around my age, and we'd ride on our bikes to this little country store where we'd buy Garbage Pail Kids, Mad Magazine, and comic books and candy. They sold some tapes. They had this one, and I remember saving up my allowance. I bought this tape. It was the soundtrack of '86 and '87. I remember having fake wrestling championships on our trampoline with Livin On A Prayer blasting into the boombox. It was our pump-up music. I used to duct tape a little dual cassette boombox to the back of my BMX bike, and I'd ride around, and me and my pals would just scream, shot through the heart, to the top of our lungs. I know you have similar memories. Even more keepsakes come to mind with the album New Jersey. I remember dedicating the song I'll Be There For You to this girl that I had a crush on, called up our local station, Z103. I was also the music editor for our crappy little school newspaper in 6th grade, and I reviewed Bad Medicine. I gave it 5 stars. Anyway, Bon Jovi has sold over 130 million albums worldwide, making them one of America's biggest selling rock bands. They've performed close to 3,000 concerts, making them one of the highest grossing touring bands of all time, like I said. They were inducted into the UK Music Hall of Fame in 2006. Jon Bon Jovi was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 2009, and Bon Jovi, the band, was finally inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2018, which ridiculously overdue. Having said that, here is my Bon Jovi fiver, my top 5 Bon Jovi recorded performances. Number 5, Lay Your Hands on Me, the 4th single from the New Jersey album that reached number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 20 on the mainstream rock chart, in 1989. Lay Your Hands on Me is a soulful exhortation from Jon with bone-crushing Sambora guitar work and those take me to church background vocals. The title implies a religious experience, and the song has that sonic power of a gospel revival. A feeling country music legend Dolly Parton had when she heard the song. Dolly asked Jon Richie, who co-penned the song, if they were okay with her turning Lay Your Hands on Me into a gospel song to include on her 2014 album Blue Smoke. Can you imagine? The guys were totally down with it, of course, and Dolly actually had Richie come on stage to play the song with her at Glastonbury Festival in the summer of 2014. This song rocks, with an epic beginning that launches the listener into the stratosphere midway. My favorite part is Jon's vocal here. And number 4, It's My Life. Bon Jovi brought back the swagger of their Slippery When Wet days, with the return of Richie's talkbox and many other awesome Bon Jovi attributes. In the song, there is a reference to the characters Bon Jovi sings about in Livin On A Prayer with the line, "For Tommy and Gina who never back down." Of course, being a huge Sinatra fan, I love the tip of the hat to Frank with the lyric, "Like Frankie said, I did it my way." It's My Life was from the 7th studio album by Bon Jovi, Crush, released in 2000. Now, it was a #1 single in many countries in Europe, but it stalled at number 33 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the US. It's actually one of those songs that we talk about often that is much bigger than its peak chart position. It's My Life has become an arena rock staple in America and around the globe. Number 3, You Give Love a Bad Name, the song that kicked off Slippery When Wet and therefore Bon Jovi mania, starting with that lightning bolt cold vocal intro shot through the heart. Shot through the heart, and you're to blame. You give love. Yeah. First time I heard that, I became a Bon Jovi disciple. You Give Love a Bad Name was a monster #1 song that took the world by storm in '86. It was Desmond Child who came up with the song's title during those fruitful writing sessions in Richie's mom's basement, and upon hearing Desmond's idea for a song title, Jon instantly invented that earth-shaking opening lyric which became the song's big chorus. I mean, it's hard to read the lyrics of that song without belting them out at the top of our lungs, as I did many times as a dumb kid. It was a lot of what was to come. Number 2, Wanted Dead or Alive. A Western-flavored autobiographical ballad about a road-weary rocker who is lonely between gigs despite playing at sold-out arenas and finds it hard to distinguish between audiences. Now, the rock and roll lifestyle is exciting, but as this song says, physically exhausting and emotionally draining. Jon came up with the idea for the song one morning after a sleepless night on the tour bus. He drew further inspiration from Bob Seger's song, Turn the Page. On a stillness I wanted, dead or alive. Wanted was the 3rd single from the mega Slippery When Wet album, rising to number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 13 on the mainstream rock chart in '87. The tune has one of my favorite Bon Jovi lyrics with that line, "I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all." I've seen a million faces and I've rocked them all. How many of you have anxiously waited for that part? Every time. The element that makes Jon's voice one of a kind is the overwhelming conviction. So freaking good. Richie really shines on Wanted. Besides co-writing this classic with Jon, Sambora demonstrates his incredible dexterity, particularly during the guitar solo where Sambora plays one of his trademark multi-neck 12-string Ovation guitars. Richie also has some wicked vocal exchanges with Jon Bon Jovi. And number 1, Livin On A Prayer, one of the most beloved tracks of the rock and roll era. This song truly demonstrates the timeless power of story and song. Livin On A Prayer is, of course, the saga of Tommy and Gina, 2 love-struck kids that are fighting their way through the adversities of the working class. Desmond Child co-wrote the song with Jon Richie and stated the storyline of the song was inspired by the real-life situation he encountered with his live-in girlfriend in the late 70s. They too struggled to make ends meet but relied on their love to keep them strong and full of hope. In the real life scenario though, Desmond didn't work on the docks like Tommy. He was actually a cab driver. But Desmond's girlfriend, like Gina in the song, was in fact a waitress who worked in a diner. As undeniable as Livin On A Prayer is to our ears, Jon Bon Jovi was originally not very fond of the tune, and he wanted to leave it off the album. I mean, can you imagine Slippery When Wet or Bon Jovi without Livin On A Prayer? It'd be like the Eagles without Hotel California or Queen without Bohemian Rhapsody. I mean, Richie campaigned heavily to put this song on the album, and after getting a very positive response from some teenage friends he played the song for, Jon changed his mind and they added the track to the album. Livin On A Prayer is a pop culture phenomenon that resonates with generation after generation. My kids love it. Their kids are going to love it. No matter what class you hail from, where you're from, whatever, I think what makes this tune so relatable is that most people have felt the same struggles that the song's heroes, Tommy and Gina, were going through at some point in our lives. And the right song, as you know, can really inspire you and rescue you through the tough times. This song has sold nearly 4 million copies since its release in late '86 and was Bon Jovi's second consecutive #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 from Slippery When Wet. It also topped the mainstream rock and UK rock and metal chart and struck #1 in Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, and Norway. It was global. Still is. That's the thing about Jon Bon Jovi and his band. The music they've created has always got your back. They give us redemption and faith against all odds. Mostly it's music of hope, which is a powerful thing, especially in the times that we live in. As he says, you live for the fight when that's all that you've got. You got to keep the faith. Thanks, Jon. To hear all these classic songs and more, click on our curated playlist below. To get Bon Jovi's music on vinyl or on CD, click on our Amazon link below. There's also their box set. Leave us a comment about Bon Jovi and their songs. What is your fiver? If you like our content, subscribe to our channel, hit us up on Patreon. Your support goes a long way. Help us keep the music alive. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.